I need to know a couple of things. Adam, I'm going to ask you why it is critical for us to look at the 2017 legislature as potentially a path to move this process forward. There's a lot of discussion about that, and so if you can quickly share your perspective on that. Then, John, I'm going to tee you up because I think it's important to, you have to know where you've been in order to know where you're going. John Willinghoff mentioned the fact that you've been talking about restructuring and deregulation since the 1990s. What has changed, and therefore why is this embraceable? And then we'll go from there.
Simply enough as to why we have to do it in 2017 is what you just talked about, technology. And technology changing every 6 to 12 months. We can look at that gigafactory that all Nevadans have invested into that's going to be turning out batteries that are going to change the way we do energy storage, and the cost of energy storage is going to drop precipitously. The same way the cost of solar panels has dropped precipitously over the last few years. And we have to make sure that we can begin to integrate that technology as it's coming out. Because if we get stuck into an old system, we are not going to be able to integrate that technology. And if we don't address this till 2023, then that means that we are going to be 5-6 years behind where we should be on actually making these changes. And it means that we're going to have to undo that much more of the old way in order to adapt the technology that is going to change the future of Nevada in the most positive ways.
So, look, in Pennsylvania, we've now had 20 years of experience. This is the 20th year since the passage of our State Act in 1996. And we had, in 1996, 2 electric utilities in our 2 most populous areas. We have 13 million Pennsylvanians in the 2 most populous areas, the Pittsburgh region and the Philadelphia region. Those 2 electric utilities had residential rates that were amongst the 10 highest in the country. We had rates in some other parts of the state that were more reasonable, but on average they were 15% above. Today, electric rates in our formerly most expensive areas are 40% lower than in real terms than they were in 1996. They've gone down a very big amount in real terms. There are dollars to be saved. By our calculation in Pennsylvania, just in the residential sector, there's been about $818 million a year worth of saving for residential customers across the Commonwealth. Small business customers have actually been the biggest savers because they would be getting the shortest end of the stick under the old regulatory model. They were paying the highest rates, and they've done even better. So there's been dollars saved, but also there is significant now innovation coming through. To pick up on your point and both of your points, it is not simply about price. And with the point about storage that you just made, there's going to be a choice whether you plan for it or not. It's better to plan for it. So I think now, 2016 going into 2017, is the time to do this in a planned, proper way that brings all Nevadans along and doesn't throw any Nevadans to the curb.
Can I tackle that?
You can, because I have a follow-up for you, okay. So go ahead.
Now, to drill this into the pure economics of it, there's something called the production tax credit, and it is expiring. It is ticking away day by day by day. And I have access to PTC qualified turbines. That means production tax credit turbines, meaning turbines that will allow me to kick that PTC into gear at commercial operation date. Let me touch on the PTC for a second. I've gotten into some near-death bar fights with some of my Republican buddies over this PTC conversation. It is a production tax credit. It is an investment tax credit. Okay, I don't get that until I've spent at least $100 million on a small wind project, or as in the case of what we're doing, a bunch of money. And the fact of the matter is that is going against you, because I'm not saying that Nevada is all about wind. It needs to be everything. But if you want to have significant wind come online, and if you want the consumers to be able to capture that, wow, you are chasing a mouse down a hole right now, and you got to move fast. I don't think you've got till 2023 if you really want to do this and you want to make it to be about renewable energy.
So, following up, You referenced, Adam, the principles that the Energy Choice Initiative has developed. I know it was a collaborative effort. But there are a series of competing principles that our investor-owned utility, Nevada Energy, has offered. It seems to me that there is a need to have a conversation around policy. So I need to understand, and Gary, you've had experience in a variety of jurisdictions, what policy should we be considering in order to address those concerns? Everything from stranded cost to a question that I have from the audience, which is how we ensure that low-income residents aren't stuck in high-cost energy markets. Go.
That's for me? Well, the high-cost energy market scenario, I go back to the Texas Power to Choose website. I mean, it is available to anybody who wants to click on there. Oh boy, policy issues, policy questions.
Okay, rapid fire.
You
can defer because John.
No, I was trying to think on my feet.
Okay.
The stranded cost issue is something that is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and I think that conversation needed to start like about 6 months ago. I don't know how you're going to address that because the incumbent utility obviously has stranded costs, and you cannot throw them under the bus. So that is probably the biggest thing that you've got to touch right now. The other thing that you've got to get into is you've got to get into the consumer protection aspects of this. And I get a lot of links, emails from people here in Nevada talking about the polling. The polling's great, but you got to move on from the polling. Now you got to start education, and you've got to start education in a great big way. Because I've met with some business leaders this morning that know quite a bit, but I guarantee you the employees that work for those business leaders have no idea why the businesses did the things that they've done. And that's the next step. You've got to hit the ground running on education really, really fast.
So on low income, there's a whole range of things that should be done. This is just to be absolutely upfront. This is my own quote-unquote morality. I think electricity is a necessity of life, and I don't think any human being should be without a necessity of life. Both things are arguable. So that's where I'm coming from. So in Pennsylvania, what we did at the time that we restructured and ended the generation monopoly and gave everybody choice, we also increased something called our universal service programs, our customer assistance programs. These are programs provided by the distribution utility and paid for by all customers. We increased them very dramatically. We increased the budgets by fourfold, which was a huge increase. We also increased our low-income usage reduction program, an energy conservation program targeted to low-income families. Those very important protections that we did. The third thing that you can look at is bulk purchasing for low-income families and having fixed-price contracts, perhaps long-term contracts, aggregation pools. And there's any number of things that can be done and should be done for low-income families. And by the way, many of those things, like the aggregation pools, are tools for all consumers, regardless of income or it's a great idea for small business customers, as one example.
And so I just want to recap one point. So real quick, so you were able to quadruple the amount of money to help with the universal service programs, able to lower the cost of power so it's less today than it was in 1996, save almost 40% less today than it was in 1996, save residents almost $1 billion a year, and you did that all while opening up an energy market. Right. Okay, I just want to make that point.
I have another question from the audience. And that is that there have been some concerns expressed by those who are interested in job creation, some from organized labor and from others. The question then is, how will this measure help create more jobs? Will it be additive? And I'll let anyone tackle it.
I personally think it will be additive. You absolutely have an opportunity, for example, to have for a much better range of services in homes. That's new jobs. You have an opportunity to have new investment going into generation, on-site generation, as well as more traditional generation feeding into the grid. That's jobs. And of course, if you have a market that is performing better over a period of time, you're going to be making Nevada more competitive. And that will, in fact, help businesses here in Nevada employ people ultimately.
Caterpillar moved back to Texas. Texas is one of the cheapest cost electricity states in the country. If you want to move to Texas and open a business in Texas, you want 100% green renewable energy, I guarantee you there'll be at least a half a dozen energy brokers knocking down your door the minute you open up for business. The jobs.
Talk about the VAT. Hold on.
Well, I'm just telling you, the market comes.
But let me add to that too. Nevada has the lowest amount of electrical worker jobs per capita of any state in the western U.S. So we have one way to go, up.
Exactly.
Very good.
Any small business that can manage their operating expenses better can hire more people and pay more people, pay higher wages. So I definitely believe that choice is going to provide a lot of opportunity. And again, going back to technology, technology is going to drive even more opportunity for Nevada.
So the takeaway is, because we've come to the end of our time, that this is not an easy. It's not an easy undertaking. There are a whole host of steps that are required, but it has been done. It has been done well. Markets are important. Markets send signals. We have to hear the markets. Innovation, technology will be a huge aspect of this. I have somebody who's raising their hand, and I'm going to give you a second to tell me what your quick question is, because I'm supposed to be wrapping up. But
All right. I'm an old Republican, and what's going on pisses me off. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it pisses me off. 80% of energy costs can be saved through proper construction technology. We're building with R22, R30 walls, but it could be R70 with new technologies, be fireproof and everything like that. There's also government technologies and NASA and military that we should apply to what we're doing right now. The dam is down to 22 months left of water. Nevada Energy is already putting out requests for proposals for hundreds of megawatts because it can't turn the turbines as fast. All right? We have the ability in Mount Charleston to make in 8 acres more power than the Hoover Dam. These technologies exist. I'd like to talk to the guy from Switch and the guy from Texas. I'll blow your mind.
all right, so that was a quatement. That is sort of a question wrapped in a statement, but it's acceptable at the end of the process. But it does, I think, emphasize the fact that we are dealing in a very sort of fast-moving market. That the key word here is opportunity, and Nevada has the opportunity to seize it. I hope that you found the panel as productive and provocative as I did, and I'd ask you to help join me in thanking them for their participation.